I've got Steph here with me today and we are walking into the Knoydart Peninsula. We are at Glendessary right now. The total route is about 70 kilometers and today we will be walking around 15 kilometers to the Sourlie's bothy. Tomorrow we'll be getting up on the ridge and climbing the 3 Knoydart munros. The third day we'll be probably getting back to Sourlie's, and finally on the fourth day we'll be climbing the Glendessary munros and back to the car park. Weather-wise today it's not looking great. I've got my full rain gear on and according to the weather forecast, which is pretty unreliable out here, the weather's pretty temperamental. Tomorrow's looking a lot drier and on the third day it's looking to rain again, but on the Friday it should be quite hot and warm. Loadout wise not much has changed for me. I've got my 3F backpack and that's pretty much filled to the brim with food at the moment. I'm also carrying my 3F Lanshan 1 Pro. That's probably the biggest change. This is going to be my first time using it out in the wild and I'm quite excited to find out how it handles itself. We're now leaving Glendessary Wood behind us and continuing to walk towards Sourlie Bothy. They say Knoydart is the last great wilderness in Scotland and it truly feels that way walking into it. The path is definitely still boggy and we do still have to jump around a bit. But the terrain definitely is easier to walk than before. We've now completely given up on trying to keep our feet dry and we are now just marching through towards Sourlie. I'm very glad that we decided just to march through because the path that we just descended off has turned into a river. I'm also very glad that there is a bridge behind us because that river is flowing really quickly. Here we are at Sourlie Bothy and I think Steph is quite keen on spending the night here and I'm not going to fight her on that even though I had full intentions to world camp when we set off this afternoon. I'm quite wet as well and it would be nice to have a shelter over our heads just for tonight. We've only managed to make it here 20 minutes before sunset, so I think it was a good decision to march through the water and march through the rain, because otherwise I don't think we would have made it here in any reasonable time. It's been a pretty tiring day and it's one of the wettest days of my life, but here's to hoping that the weather tomorrow is better. Last night's stay in the bothy was quite comfortable. It was really nice to have a solid roof over our head after such a wet day, and I'm really glad that we actually stayed in the bothy instead of camp outside. It was really nice to have a table to put our food on and a chair to sit in whilst we cook our food instead of having to squat over it outside the tent. Today's itinerary will be climbing the 3 munros in Knoydart and I was hoping for a lot better weather. We're looking around about 23 kilometers to Barista where we're hoping to camp. So it's not going to be a short day and it's going to be made longer by the weather, I think. We're going through the really marshy and boggy bit and we can't follow the track that's marked on the map because that's just way too wet there. So we're having to walk through and just find our way however we can. The going's certainly not easy, but we're making steady progress and we're aiming for the outlines of the old house right there. We've just had lunch at the top of the pass and we'll be now climbing our first munro of the day. It's quite windy, so got all my layers, so I got the down jacket and got the rain jacket just to protect me against the wind. And it's looking pretty cloudy up at the summit as well. We're still on our way up to the ridge, but the sun's just come out for the first time. We've just climbed up to the ridge and the views are absolutely spectacular. We've had maybe about 30 minutes of clear views and now the clouds have moved in again. So Steph and I just swapped backpacks because I think she's struggling a bit, and her backpack is not exactly heavy, but it also just at the same time reminds me why I do use ultralight equipment. With Steph's heavier backpack, I'm definitely feeling it more when I'm climbing. I really feel the weight difference between the two backpacks. I'm completely out of breath after just a short climb. Three, two, one, smile.
You look like I'm touching me back.
Another evening, another plan change. Instead of going over to the third munro and then going down to Barisdale, we've decided it's probably best just to camp next to the summit of the second munro. We've not been walking very quickly today. We've done about 13 kilometers in about 10 hours, which isn't a great pace. The terrain has been difficult and there has been a lot of climbing, but still, we haven't been walking very quickly, and I think getting over to the third munro might be pushing it a little bit before it gets really dark. We're also decided against going down to Barisdale for the night. We heard that there was a nice campsite and some amenities as well, but we found this little spot and it looks good enough and the view's really good. So we thought, you know, if we're going to be taking a short day, we might as well enjoy the view, enjoy ourselves, have some nice whiskey and relax for the evening. I'm a pretty average hiker. I'm not doing this competitively, and for me, I do it out of enjoyment. And having a great view like this is part of the enjoyment of camping and hiking for me. Even though we weren't able to do the third munro, I think it's still a great alternative just to be able to sit back, relax, and share some time with your friends.
Cheers.
This is what my feet look like after being wet all day. I got them wet right at the start of the day at 10 o'clock walking through the marsh bit, and they never dried. They look a little bit wrinkly, but otherwise not bad. The 3F Lanshan 1 Pro is big enough for all of my gear inside. I can store everything inside. There's very little in the vestibule, and that's basically just my food, my shoes and socks, which are wet. It's quite a chilly night. I was shivering outside when I was just taking some photos of the sunset. So this should be a good test for the condensation in the 3F Lanshan 1 Pro. First night in the Lanshan 1 Pro and it's been absolutely fine. It was quite windy last night and it's been on and off rain for the past 2 hours or so. but on the inside of the Lanshan one it's completely dry, there's no condensation whatsoever. Quite pleased with it. I know there's been a lot of wind which probably does help with condensation, but so far so good. Two things I'm really glad for this morning. One, gloves, and the second is the dry bag that comes with the 3F Lanshan 1 Pro. It just makes the packing away so much easier and faster.
I think today's gonna be like brutal on my feet more than anything.
Yeah, probably.
2 days straight wet feet.
Yeah, and it's quite a long way today as well, 20k.
Yeah.
But we've got all day to do it today.
6:45. Let's go.
We're just walking into Barrisdale now, and it's taken us 2.5 hours to get down so far. We heard there was a toilet open in Barrisdale, so that would be nice to use, and we're also going to have a spot of second breakfast because we did start quite early and we've got a long day ahead of us. Barrisdale was absolutely horrible with the midges, so we only took a very short break. Basically we just stopped for the bathroom and then to have a little snack. And now we are on our way again. It's heading southward and we're about to climb towards a pass which, once we're over the other side, should take us down into Sourlie. Our pace is doing okay, it's not the quickest, but I think we're on track. We knew from yesterday our pace isn't exactly quick, so we started quite early, and I think because of that we might actually be able to stick to our plans today. We finally made it to the top of the pass. Now we have to continue southward towards Sourlie. We just made it down from the top of the pass, and that was pretty difficult. The terrain was really wet, lots of slippery slopes. There was no path down, so we basically just kind of aimed towards the river and tried to find the shallowest slopes, but both of our shoes are completely wet. Bottom of my trousers are soaked, and the bottom Steph's leggings are also soaked because of the long grass here.
Such a nice spot. I'm drunk walking.
Still walking along the river and haven't really stopped. We're still walking along the river and we can't really stop because there's so many midges. Whenever you stop, they just come and bite your face. We've waded across the river and we're now walking on the east side. It has a Land Rover track which makes it a lot easier to walk. I did slip when trying to jump over some mud, and as you can see I've got one trekking pole in my backpack because it snapped, so I've only got the one good one left. I'm actually surprised that they lasted this long. I've had these for 3 years and I've slipped so many times that I would have thought that they would have snapped much sooner. The east side is barely any better than the west side. There's still quite a few bits where we need to skip through or fall in. Right, here's Sourlie Bothy. We made it back here and we've been walking for about 10 hours. covering 20 kilometers. We've hardly stopped all day between the rain, the midges, and just the lack of opportunity to stop. We've only really stopped for the toilet. We stopped to fill our water bottles up, and then we stopped again to have a quick lunch. So yeah, we're both knackered. I'm definitely just kind of hobbling along for the last kilometer or so, and I can tell that Steph's really struggling as well. So I think we're going to stop here to rest and to have some food and just to recover and see how we're feeling, and then to see afterwards if I can convince Steph to climb up Skirna Quiche. There's a nice Lochan about 400 meters up that I saw on the map, which is where I like to wild camp tonight just to make tomorrow easier. But at the moment I think the rain is probably a bit more persuasive than I am. It was quite difficult to convince Steph to continue hiking after we sat down the bothy, so we decided just to stop for the day. I've actually just pitched up my tent just here by the bothy because there's quite a lot of people around and I quite fancied having room to myself. So we decided to get up early and be ready to go at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Today's been a pretty tough day. We walked 20 kilometers in just over 10 hours, and the terrain that we were walking through wasn't exactly easy. Most of it was pathless, it was boggy, and it was just all run horrible, especially with the rain. I felt like it would have been a lot more enjoyable if it just wasn't so wet or if we just had a little bit of sun, but it's a shame that we didn't get that. I'm really hoping that tomorrow's better. According to the weather forecast, tomorrow is meant to be a quite hot day. So I'm hoping that it will be relatively nice and we will be able to enjoy the summit views and the ridge walk.
Good morning, it's 5:30 a.m. on the morning of the fourth day. It was quite a windy night last night, but it was relatively warm, so I slept pretty well through the night. It's hard to motivate myself this morning though, knowing that we've got quite a long day ahead. But the weather looks relatively clear, which is good, and we've forecasted some warm weather. Today we'll be going over the 3 Glendessary munros. We're looking at another 20 kilometers with about 1,500 meters of climbing. Putting on damp socks for hopefully the last time on this trip. It looks like the light clouds and the blue skies are moving in towards us.
It's 6:20 and we've just left the campsite. We will be climbing along to the western ridge of Skirna Quiche and then continuing eastward to the summit, and then chaining the next 2 munros together before descending down to Glendessary Wood. We've just climbed what is probably the steepest part, and we are now walking along the ridge towards the summit. You can see the sun now, and it's getting quite windy, and it's definitely heating up. It's taken us about an hour to get up to this point so far, so we're looking at possibly another 2 hours or more to get to the summit. We've climbed up to about 600 meters above sea level, and Skirna Quiche looks a lot more doable now from the western side. We can see that the slope is a lot more gentle than we thought from down there, because down there it just looked like a triangle, and we can also see the bit where we can cut across before climbing up to the summit. It's only 300 meters to the top.
Still. It just looks so much closer.
made it to the summit of the second munro of the day. We've climbed 1400 meters so far and it's just past 12 o'clock. So we're going to have a small lunch. It's really hot. I think it's meant to be one of the hottest days of the year, and it's certainly feeling that, although at the summit there is a little bit of wind to make it a little bit more comfortable, but whilst we're climbing it's certainly very hot. So anyway, we're going to have a bit of lunch and have a rest before continuing on to the third munro.
I had a look at my trail runners and they're splitting down this right side pretty badly, and they're not in great condition overall, but I just need them to last me another 14-15 kilometers to get out of here.
That's Glendessary Wood where we walked through.
This is the top of the third munro of the day, skirting Lochan, and now we gotta go and face an incoming storm. It's 7:30 p.m. and we've been walking for just over 13 hours, and we're nearly at the end of the hike. We've just got about 800 meters left to go, and we're finishing the hike like it started, with some rain and drizzle. The Knoydart and Glendessary hike has been pretty wet but also pretty wild. I think some of the landscapes that we have walked through are pretty majestic and at times otherworldly, but it's just, I guess, with the timing that we've done it, overcome by the constant rain and the constant wetness that we've been experiencing. I think it would have been a lot nicer if the weather was a little bit drier, and to be fair, I think we've had some quite good weather given the circumstances. On both of the days that we climbed munros, we've had pretty clear weather. I mean, we've had a little bit of drizzle today and also on the second day, but given what it looked like on the other days, I think it could have been far worse. I definitely appreciate Dark Sky for providing such an accurate weather forecast. Okay, it wasn't quite true for the first day because that was meant to stop raining at around 2 o'clock when we walked in, and that turned out to be a horrible day. But it was bang on with the second day and today in forecasting clear days mostly. There have been a lot of firsts on this trip for me. It was my first bothy stay. I've walked into plenty of bothies before, but I never stayed in them. And to be honest, I don't mind them, but I still prefer camping in a tent, mostly because of the freedom and the views I can get from a tent that you just can't get from a bothy. It was also the first time that I had a piece of equipment fail on me while I'm on a hike. My other walking pole snapped. Although to be fair, that's not the pole's fault. I fell over and leaned on it. This was also the first time that someone recognised us from YouTube. On the third day when we descended towards Barrisdale, we came across a group of 5 gents who watched our video last year when we did the Fisher Field, and they stopped to say hello and they recognised us, which was nice. Gear-wise, I'm pretty impressed with all of my kit. Nothing has really disappointed me, but then again, I haven't really changed my kit around too much apart from the Lanshan 1 Pro. The Lanshan 1 Pro, I think, still needs a few more trips before I can give a proper verdict on it, but so far so good. The one piece of gear that has kind of disappointed me, if I had to nitpick, is actually this Patagonia Torrent Shell rain jacket that I'm wearing right now. It has kept me dry, but that's something that I would expect from a rain jacket. Where it does annoy me is that the zip actually doesn't function very well, especially when it's wet. And with the amount of times that we had to put on our raincoats and take them off, it really became a major annoyance during this trip. Back when we started the hike, I had a plan of where we were going to go and how far we were going to go each day. We didn't really stick to those plans as such, but that doesn't matter. I still had fun, especially the second night when we camped on top at elevation. We had a really beautiful sunset, which we wouldn't have otherwise got. One mistake I think I made during the planning of this trip is that I overestimated our walking pace. When I planned the trip, I thought we would be able to average 2 to 2.5 kilometers an hour, but in reality, I think our average pace throughout the last 4 days has been about 1.5 kilometers an hour, and that has led to very long days. And obviously on the second day we couldn't finish off the third munro, but still, even though things didn't go to plan, I still had fun. I think some of the things wouldn't have happened if we just stuck to the plan, and I'm quite happy with the way that the things turned out. Have you got any closing remarks, Steph?
I'm too tired. I don't know.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, parts of it.
Which parts?
The camping and the summits today.
And which parts did you not enjoy?
Where to start? Let's go with all the wetness, having wet feet for 4 days. Also the swamps, the bogs. That's it.
So the vast majority of the hike. But anyway, we are just approaching the car park where we left the car 4 days ago now. So thank you all for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.